Creepers left to rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to steal my lady. Spiders in the mirror and films can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life.
Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I just am going to be doing a very quick just reading update for books that I've been reading recently. I am not going to be vlogging for a little while. I just am feeling in general just really overwhelmed with life and everything. So I thought that at the very least what I could do is just wrap up some books, talk to you about some books that I've been reading, but like not within a set period of time. So what I have today are 5 books that I've read recently that I'm going to talk to you about, and then I think, depending on life, my next video will probably be the next 5 books that I've read that I can review for you. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book that I want to talk to you about today is Netherland Bone by T. Kingfisher. So over the last few months, I have just absolutely fallen in love with this author's writing. I think that she is truly a very gifted writer and storyteller. Like, I love the way she puts words together. I love her blend of like horror and unsettling with wit and charm and some sort of heartwarming moments. I think she does that really well. A lot of her books have, even ones that are very scary, have some good humor in it that I really, really like. So I wanted this book so badly, and I bought the physical copy because it comes with beautiful illustrations, very similar to What Moves the Dead. And I just think it's just such a beautiful book. This one is this one is not horror, although there are some unsettling elements to it. This is more of like a fantasy book with romantic elements, and the romance in here is very, very minimal, just so you know. But this was just a beautifully well-told story. This is sort of like a dark fairy tale. It is a spin on like the princess marrying a prince, 2 neighboring kingdoms marrying to join together and provide like political relief to the community, so there's no like wars and things like that. So our heroine's name is Mara, and she is like the youngest daughter of this kingdom who is in distress and strife with this neighboring kingdom. And the 2 kingdoms work out a deal where Mara's sisters, her oldest sister, will marry that prince, and then they will have peace. Mara's older sister ends up passing away, and Mara's devastated about that. So then the next sister in line marries the prince to maintain that alliance. And Mara finds out that some very unsettling and disturbing things are happening with that sister, and she's basically being abused at the hands of this prince. Mara has been raised in a convent during this time to hopefully be protected from things such as that happened to her sisters. But she is so upset about what's happening to her sister. She's like filled with this sense of righteous indignation, wanting to bring this prince down and just like stop him. But she also feels very tethered because she can't do anything too much that's going to result in a political upheaval, because there's peace right now between them. So she decides she's going to take things into her own hands. She's going to try and find a way to kill him that nobody's going to know about. So she ends up contacting or seeking out a grave witch who says, yeah, I will help you kill this prince if you complete 3 impossible tasks. She assumes they're impossible. One of them is to build a dog out of bones. Another one is to sew a cape of nettles. It's a cape, right? A cloak of nettles. And the third one is to capture moonlight in a jar. And so Mara ends up accomplishing these impossible tasks. The bone dog ends up being a companion of hers for a while. It's very cute and adorable, even though it's a little unsettling too. And she ends up along this journey to try and find a way to kill this prince. She ends up meeting a fairy godmother and a chicken that's possessed by a demon, and this sort of they call him a disgraced ex-knight. And so it's basically this quest, and all of these people join her in her quest to stop this evil prince. So this was a very fun read. It was immersive in the best way. It was dark at times. It was humorous at times. The romance in here was super, super minimal, but it was just so absorbing and delightful, and I just had a great time reading this. I did give this book 4 stars instead of 5 stars because I felt like at times in the middle, even though this is a very short book, there were times that this felt a bit meandering, a little bit like the plot, which that I described to you, seems like it's got this clear path. It seemed like it wasn't going anywhere like I wanted it to, especially for being such a short book. So I wish that the plot had been a little bit more concise and moved along in a more linear way instead of having very meandering, ambling paths into other people that she met. But still very enjoyable, but not my favorite T. Kingfisher, but still absolutely enjoyed reading it. 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so the next book that I read was an arc, and was The DoOver by T.L. Swan. This is the last book in the Miles family, so this is book number 4. Has the youngest brother, Christopher, in here. I was pretty excited about this. I've only read 2 other T.L. Swan books before, The Takeover, which I absolutely loved, and The Casanova, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun read. I liked it, plus the heroine in that book has endometriosis, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. But The DoOver was a huge disappointment for me. I gave it 2 stars. I found Christopher, the hero, to be one of the most insufferable heroes that I have ever read about. He was just the very typical rich, privileged, spoiled brat that we often see in heroines, and it just was so off-putting to me. Like, that was one of the biggest parts that I just could not get behind his character, because and that's the point of the book, is that he is very privileged, very spoiled, and so he sort of ends up going on this journey, traveling abroad without money to try and have a do-over so that he can actually have, like, a life that's meaningful and things like that. But I just never, ever, ever felt like he grew as a character, even up until the very end, when the couple, who I haven't even mentioned, have their breakup. There was very little character growth on his part. He remained, from almost the beginning to the end, privileged, overbearing, demanding things be done his way or the highway. He was frequently yelling at the heroine, like flying off the handle all the time. But, like, he was just so spoiled, and I just did not like this book at all. And so he ends up going to Spain, and that's where he ends up meeting the heroine, Hayden. And she is a very sweet heroine. She's got a family who raises ranch animals, basically like cows and things like that. She wants to work in animal husbandry, and so she's very much like a farm girl, and he is this billionaire rich boy, and they meet, and he lets her believe that he is a teacher, that he's not wealthy, that he isn't who he is, and maintains that through, like, the very, very end. And there were times when she found out, I felt like she was really understanding and tried to make things work with him, even though he had kept this huge secret from her that he was this freaking billionaire. And she tries to adapt and move into his life. They move to London together. She leaves her family, her farm, her dreams of being, like, working in animal husbandry. She leaves all that behind to move along with him in his life and what he wants, because he's like, you have to abandon all this if you're going to be with me. This is what I do. I work in London. This is my job. So, and she's like, well, what about my job? What about my career? What about my dreams? And it just, I just hated it so much. She deserved better. She was a very sweet heroine. She was continuously willing to forgive him, to move on, to bend to his will, and he did not do any of that with her until, like, right at the very end. And I just really didn't like this. I didn't like anything about it. This was very disappointing to me, and I cannot recommend this, and I never will recommend this. So it was just a hot mess, and I mean, I haven't even talked about a lot of like the humor in here was very gross, very demeaning, and I just, there was so much like women hate in here. There was so much talk about the hero needing sex, and I'm just like, I hate everything about this book. So I feel like giving it 2 stars is really being quite generous, because the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like, this was definitely a 1-star read. Like, maybe I will adapt my review to a 1-star read. But anyway, did not like that, not even a little bit. Also, this isn't a vlog, but I did make some tea, and I put my vlog, hopefully, if it worked, I put my vlog music in this video, so it could kind of, I know a lot of you comment on how much you love the vlog music, so even though I'm not vlogging, I'm hopefully giving you a little bit of that experience. So this tea that I am trying is given to me by Candace. This one is Bombay Chai. Let's try it. I don't love that. I don't love that, sadly. It has a really strong, you know, if you watched my Vlogmas from like 2020, you will know that I'm not a fan of fennel, and this has a very strong fennel and anise flavor, which I don't like. So if you like those flavors, you would probably love this. This one is the first tea I've had in this package that was a miss, and I am sad that I included it in this video, and I am sorry. But I still love the tea package, and it smelled really good. I think this is just a me thing. I picked chai because it's September now, and I love chai. Okay, next book. So the next book that I read is The Unwanted Wife by Natasha Anders. I've been hearing about this book for a long time. I think this book was featured on Fated Mates. I know this book is known for having an excellent grovel, and like, who doesn't love a grovel, right? I love grovels in romances, but the main reason that I love them is because of usually the work that the hero goes through that we get to see on page as he is sort of coming to terms with the fact that he may actually lose the woman that he loves, and what's he going to do to change, and how is he going to try and make it up for her. Like, it's just such a wonderful, it's a satisfying experience as a romance, but it's also very satisfying character development, because it shows like this realization of, oh, I messed up big time, I gotta try and make things right. And like, I love that in romance novels. I love that in fiction in general. I love seeing people make mistakes and learn from them, realize them, feel that sorrow for making that mistake, and then trying to move forward in the future and try and make things right and see if they're going to salvage this relationship, because I love that, and I want my couples to be able to work through that. I really do. So this book was, I have very conflicted feelings about this book. This book was available on KU, and it comes with the audio. I'm trying to go through, I've got a huge list of books that are on KU that come with audio that hopefully I can recommend to you guys. And this one, I would recommend this one, but with like a caveat, because this is an angsty book, but it's angsty in the way that it's painful, because like almost the entire first half of this book is us reading the hero be verbally abusive and cruel to the heroine. And I know that that's in there to set the stage for this great grovel, and he does grovel really well, but I didn't get to see a lot of that character transformation and growth that I was looking for. That is what makes a grovel work for me. Instead, it was just like him sort of telling her, well, I behaved this way because I was actually feeling like this. And so even though he's like cruel to her, he still actually has feelings for her. And I just really, really hate that. I hate when the hero is like, I actually had feelings for you, but I treated you terribly. Like, stop doing that, okay? And I know that's how life is also, but I just don't like reading about it, you know? So the basic premise of this is it's an arranged marriage for financial. It's not quite a mafia, although there's kind of like those undertones that, you know, there's a deal made with the heroine's father and the hero for like business arrangements that she's gonna marry him. And she is supposed to give him a son, an heir, even though this is like a contemporary romance, you know? And she can't conceive for a while, and she is very conflicted about that. But there is something that, I know this book is often criticized that the heroine is a little bit of a pushover, but I didn't find her to be a pushover. I felt like she was strong and suitable to her character. But the thing that I really liked about her specifically that I think she doesn't get enough credit for is she is in a situation that is very much out of her control. She didn't choose this marriage. She couldn't choose this marriage. She was trapped by this marriage. And then you get get to see her rise up in this awareness that I actually am worth more than my father doing this to me and this man who is my husband doing this to me. Because when she first marries him, she has this hope that he'll love her, and she has this hope that they'll make this work and that they'll actually be happy. And then he leads her to believe that he's like cheating on her, and you can just see like all of that hope fade away. And she sort of gets this like resilience of, I am worth more, I am getting out. And so she wants a divorce, and she actually ends up becoming pregnant. And the hero at that point, that is really the thing when the hero finds out, that's the thing that sort of visibly changes his reaction to her, because he realizes she's been telling him, you know, once I have a son, I'm out, I'm leaving, I'm gone, you'll never see me again. And he realizes when she's pregnant that he needs to change his behavior. He needs to try and do a better job of, you know, being nice to her and actually letting her know that he actually does love her. So it had elements that should have worked for me because I love this type of book, but I don't feel like we got an equal payoff for the amount of suffering that the heroine went through and the amount of suffering that the hero went through to win her back. That being said, there were some truly beautiful moments in this towards the end that included like the grovel, the hero trying to prove that he loves her, that he's always loved her, that were beautiful, that kind of had me questioning, is this maybe a 4? But ultimately when I finished it, I was still left feeling just slightly disappointed. I wanted more. I was hoping for more emotional labor on the part of the hero, and I just didn't feel like we quite got that. So 3 stars for this one. I do think this was worth the read, and I think that if you like a grovel, I would recommend checking this out. I'm not sure that it's going to 100% work for you, but it was worth the read for me. It did end up being a little bit disappointing, but also not completely unenjoyable, you know what I mean? So 3 stars for that one. Okay, so now another book that I wanted to talk about is this beautiful book. Like, look at this cover. I am 100% obsessed with this cover. I think this is probably one of my favorite fantasy romance covers I've ever seen. And I love it because like this sword, the way she's holding it away from the hero is actually a big part of the story, and I like that that was included in the cover. And okay, I went into this book, I bought this book because of the cover. It's just stunning. And I have had it sitting on my shelves for a while because I've been scared that I wasn't gonna like it compared to the cover. But I did end up really enjoying this. I went into this with fairly low expectations, and I feel like they were met. This was a fun read. I gave it 4 stars. It's probably on the lower end of 4 stars, and I feel like maybe I'm being a little generous because this isn't a perfect book by any means. This isn't a perfect fantasy romance, but my enjoyment level of it was pretty high. I did have a lot of fun with this. I think the opening chapter in here was fantastic. It really sets the stage. It does have a little bit of a heavier vibe and tone because of what happens with the heroine. She is like 8 or 9 years old in the beginning, and assassins come and they kill her mother before her eyes, and then she sort of has this warrior awakened in her and she kills these assassins. And this other assassin, who's sort of like lord of the assassins, I keep saying that word, I'm sorry, comes, sees her, sees the 2 bodies, and he's like, well, I'm gonna adopt you, and then I'm also going to train you to be an assassin. And so then she rises up to be this fearful, powerful assassin. I mean, like, she's just like this total bad A-B, you know what I mean? Sorry, I don't cuss on I don't cuss, but and I loved that. I loved her character. The main plot of this that sends it into like a romance is that she's sent to kill the barbarian king. He's this big, huge, powerful man, supposed to be super alpha and tough. He's really a cinnamon roll, and I loved that. I loved that so, so much. I think that's one of my favorite fantasy romance tropes, when this big, huge, gruff man that is like supposed to be this big warrior is actually like the sweetest, softest cinnamon roll for the heroine, and I just love that so freaking much. So she's sent to kill him. She can't go through with it, and he ends up hiring her to be one of his guards and to help protect her. There is only one bed trope in here. There is only one horse trope in here. The fantasy elements in this book are very, very light. Like, there's dragons mentioned, magic swords, magic things like that, but the world building in here is pretty minimal. I think that this is pretty easy to get into. The world building of this is you know, pretty low, but it was just fun. Like they had, what is my hair doing right here? I'm sorry. They had good banter, but not in like a super rom-com type of way. They verbally sparred really well together. I felt like they had great chemistry. I liked the background plot. I enjoyed this. I mean, obviously there are elements of this, because it's not a 5-star, that I felt like were a little bit weak. Like the heroine is just presented in such a way to be completely, totally strong, but I didn't feel like we were really shown that. I also felt like some of the plot elements in here were kind of just thrown in there to get the story going, but in a way that didn't feel completely natural. But all of that aside, I think that I don't know why, but I looked at this with a more charitable eye, and I just had a good time reading it. So 4 stars for this. If you're looking for I was sent to kill you and then I fell for you instead, I would recommend this. It was a fun read. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. Okay, now my last book I want to talk about is Shattered Sea by Catherine Cowles. This is the first book I've read by this author, and I was sent an ARC of this. I listened to the audio ARC, and then the author was kind enough to send me this physical copy, which is not this book beautiful. Y'all, I'm sorry. I'm not editing that out. We're gonna keep this casual and chill as if it were a vlog. So sorry I fumbled over my words, but I feel like I've got the physical books that I own, like their covers are just so stunning. So I'm very happy about this. So this is part of her small town romance series, and I was sent this arc because the heroine deals with chronic pain. And that is something that I am extremely familiar with. And I was really excited to read that. So the basic premise of this book is Lakin is our heroine. The prologue in this book begins when she is very young. She's either in high school or about to graduate from high school, very young. She's with her high school boyfriend, and there is something very, very tragic that happens that causes her chronic pain in the future. She has loss of a loved one that is on page, and I felt like it was beautifully written. It was so emotionally traumatic in a way that felt like a gut punch. Like it was just beautifully done. And I have to give props to the audio narrator who narrated that section, because I got chills listening to that. It was just very powerful, and I found it to be very emotionally moving. And because of the tragic events that happen in there, things are not looking great for Lakin in the future. So then years pass. She's an adult. She's living on her own. She has an adorable little chihuahua who is in a mobility aid. He's got wheels on his back legs. It's pretty adorable. And she's also a photographer working in this gallery, but nobody knows that she's actually that photographer. So she's the heroine. The hero is Bowden, and he is a famous movie star. He comes to this small town kind of looking for refuge because he also lost someone dear to him through tragic circumstances, but he's here to sort of research a role and work with horses for a new role that he has coming up. And they end up meeting. They have a really beautiful first meeting. He has this really awesome moment where he is just so captivated by one of her photographs that happens to be a portrait of herself. And it was just really, really beautiful. Their romance was sweet. It was beautifully just slow moving, slow building, but very fulfilling and very satisfying. And I think their romance was my favorite part of this book. I really, really enjoyed that. I do wish we had seen some more chronic illness moments, like her living with pain daily. There were very few scenes that talked about her experience living with chronic pain, and I was just hoping for more. And maybe that's because that's how it was pitched to me, because I just felt like oftentimes when I read books, and I haven't read a ton of them, mostly because I don't enjoy, I find them a little, not triggering, but I find them a little upsetting to read. I don't want to read about chronic pain. I would prefer to read about something that I don't have a ton of experience with, I was looking for, I wanted to be able to see myself in these pages, and I do feel like sometimes the chronic pain was maybe not used as much as I would have preferred, because it didn't seem to be a daily part of her life. And I can understand why the author maybe did that, because she didn't want it to be every single moment of this character's life. But for people who have chronic pain, it is every single moment of your life, So I was kind of hoping for maybe a little bit more insight into that. What we got was beautifully done, and I loved seeing the hero support and help take care of her, but I was just kind of hoping for a little bit more expansion in that area specifically. I ended up giving this book 4 stars, and that's mostly because the romance was fantastic. I didn't care for the suspense side background plot in this book. I would have so much rather have seen this be about her emotional healing from the trauma in the prologue and her like physical healing, learning to come to terms with her chronic pain, and just have the focus be on the romance instead of this additional suspense plot that kind of felt like it didn't necessarily come out of nowhere, but it just seemed, for my personal taste, it was unnecessary. I would have preferred it to be more about the internal work instead of this external plot that kind of at times felt unbelievable and a little bit bonkers and was, in my opinion, unnecessary. I think that the romance itself, it didn't need that suspenseful plot. So 4 stars. The 1 star doc is really because of the plot. It was kind of came out of nowhere. It was a bit off, a bit out there, a bit bonkers. Maybe not bonkers, but unnecessary, I feel like, because the core of this book, the romance, the emotional development of the characters was really beautifully done, and I would have preferred that to be the focus rather than having that plot take center stage. However, I will say, if you prefer your romances to have very little internal angst and have like an external plot be the source of the angst, I would recommend this because there's very, very, very little angst within the romance. It's the outside plot that is sort of causing tension and what's going to happen type of stuff. So 4 stars for this one. All right, there you go. Those are some reviews for 5 books that I've read. I hope you enjoyed this video, my friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Not sure when that'll be, but thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. And if you've made it this far and you want to let me know that you were here by leaving me an emoji, please leave me a fall leaf if you have one. And I'll see y'all in my next video.